Chapter 10, Correlation and Regression. For this chapter 10, you can turn to page 551. Okay, 551 page. Chapter 10 about correlation and regression. This chapter is quite famous lah. Okay, dia punya probability to being asked in the final exam quite high. Almost every semester this type of question from this chapter come out on your test or your final exam. Hopefully you can do lah, okay, for this chapter, correlation and regression. Okay, here in this chapter, correlation and regression, you need to understand about the relationship. Okay, relationship, hubung kait ataupun how one variables influence another variables. Then we need to understand about the independent variables and also the dependent variable. They are dependent variables that depend on the independent variables. For example, here we have the cars, we have the revenue. The car itself is the independent variables. That's why it labeled as a X. Okay, X axis is the independent variable, while Y axis is the dependent variables. The revenue, how numbers of cars influence the revenue. Basically, if we understand, the higher number of car, the higher the revenue. That is the relationship between these two variables. At your level, it's not really complicated because it involves one-way relationship only. Okay, one-way relationship where you have one variables for independent and one variables for the dependent variables. But if you further study, the relationship sometimes it's not about one-way relationship. It's not about just a revenue. Number of course, not just about the revenue. Maybe number of costs to service the car, it will increase. Is the number of car increase? That's another thing. And many other component inside the relationship. Okay, for example, here we have the y-axis and x-axis. Then we have the data set. From the data set, you can plot. Okay, you can plot. You can put here, anywhere lah, according to the data. Okay, that is one of the pattern built up by the plotting of the data at the graph, and then you can create a linear graph. Okay, linear line along the data set. If they are increasing, if x increase is y increase, that means they are increasing. Okay, they have a positive relationship. Okay, positive relationship, positive correlation between y-axis and x-axis. If the data set itself showing the reducing pattern, this one is a negative relationship. The higher the value of x, okay, the lower the value of y. Jadi kamu tengok ya, kalau dia bergerak ke sana, nilai dia semakin tinggi lah. Tapi bila nilai x ni semakin tinggi, nilai y dia semakin jatuh. Contohlah the easiest example, the number of absent. Jadi kalau kamu selalu miss kelas, tak datang kelas, your marks will be affected. Mungkin markah tu akan semakin jatuh. Markah exam kamu lah, markah test ke. Jadi semakin tinggi absenteeism ni, makin rendah kamu punya markah. Jadi itu adalah negative relationship. Semakin tinggi kamu datang kelas, okay, semakin tinggi markah kamu. Itu adalah positive relationship. Jadi dia punya relationship ni we can calculate, measure using R. R is the Pearson correlation. Okay, Pearson correlation. We can measure it using the formula of R. This R, the value of R is in between -1 to +1. They are not exceeding +1 or below than -1. Okay, they are not exceeding +1 or below than -1. It must between these two range. Okay, if they are -1, they are very strong negative relationship between the independent variable and the dependent variable. If they are +1, that means they are very strong positive relationship between the independent variable and dependent variables. That's what you need to understand. Of course, the easiest way to see the relationship by drawing the graph. Paling mudah sekali kita nak tengok hubung kait antara independent variable dengan dependent variable by constructing a graph lah. Okay? Constructing the graph. Kemudian kita boleh juga measure the relationship by using the formula to get a specific number, nombor-nombor yang tertentu. Jadi kita boleh guna formula R ni. Jadi kita boleh guna formula R. Jadi hopefully kita boleh measure lah. Jadi kalau kamu nampak kat sini, formula R ni nampak macam complicated. Sekejap lah, saya delete. Jadi this formula R quite complicated. Okay, dia panjang dia punya formula, tapi sebenarnya dia not difficult. Dia just a formula. Kamu bukan nak derive the formula. Macam mana formula tu been come out. Kita nak datangkan formula tu macam mana? Tak. Kita bukan belajar ini this not a mathematical class or mathematical derivation subject. Tak. Ini hanya kita nak guna this formula. We insert the value inside the formula. We get the number. Specific number. Okay. That means you need to understand about the X and also the Y. X, we refer to the independent variables. Here we have the independent variable is cars, while for the dependent variable is Y. Then we can have lah. Okay, if we look at this, you need to have multiplications of X and Y, and then you add up everything. Okay, add up everything here for the formula. You need to multiply, you need to times X and Y. You need to time between independent variable and independent variables. Then after you multiply between each other, you sum up it. Okay, you tambahlah semua. Kemudian for this one, you just add up sahaja, sum sahaja all the independent variables. This one you sum for the dependent variables. And then if you look at this denominator, you need to square each of the independent variables. Please make sure lah bila saya sebut independent variable tu kamu faham kat mana apa benda independent variables tu. Why we call them as a independent variables. This one I already explained to you in chapter 1. Saya dah terang dalam chapter 1. Hopefully you can recall back lah. Okay. Here we have the X square. That means you need to square first all the X value, all the independent variable value before you add up everything. But for this one, you need to add up first all the independent variable before you square it. Okay, sebelum kamu kuasa 2 dia, kamu kena tambah dulu. This one is similar lah. Okay, from the explanation of the X. That's all. Then you get the answer. You insert the value inside the formula. Here we have the summations of X. Here we have the summations of Y. Here we have the summation of X and Y. You need to multiply here between the just wait ya. Okay, you need to multiply between x and y. That means you need to times 63 times 7 to get this answer, this level of answer. Okay, to get this level of answer, the answer will be 441.00. Okay, this one in the page of 557. And then you do for the second one, the B, company B, 29 times 3.9. Then you get the answer 113.10. After that, you add up everything. That's why the skill using the calculator is very important. Okay, the skill using the calculator is very important, because if you lack skill or did not familiarize with the calculator, then you will have a problem when you times between the independent variable and dependent variable, because sometimes when you push the button at your calculator, you push it wrongly. When you push it wrongly, supposedly you push 1 but you push 2, then it will resulting in the wrong measurement. Okay, resulting in wrong answer, and your XY will be wrong. Your final answer for R also been wrong. This question can yield about 4 marks, 4 to 6 mark. Then it will be a loss lah for you, yeah. Supposedly you can get 4 to 6 mark, you lost these marks. After that, you square each of the x. Okay, you square each of the x. For example, 63 squared equals to 3969 is similar to y squared. Then you get the summation, and then you insert the value inside the formula up until you get the R. The R will be 0.982. Of course lah, I will not doing for you, because this one just a simple insertion of the value to the formula. Kamu dah belajar waktu sekolah menengah dulu, sekolah rendah pun ada tentang formula-formula fizik lah, kimia lah. Masuk nilai sahaja. Nampak dia macam panjang, tapi it's very simple. Yang ini kadang-kadang you make a silly mistake by wrongly adding up, by wrongly times, by wrongly pushing the calculator, pushing the button on the calculator. Jadi please do not make any mistake lah here, ya. Sebab soalan ni soalan mudah yang kamu nak dapat markah. That's how to do for the R. Okay, the value of R is in between -1 to 1. Then you can get the equation line. Okay, equation line. This equation line, when we do one equation, if you still remember how to find the equation line, then if you still remember, we have the formula of y equals to mx plus c. Okay, what is y? Y is the y-axis lah, the dependent variable. X is the independent variable. M is the gradient, kecerunan dia. C is the at y-axis, dia punya pintasan pada y-axis. Okay, that is the formula. Then this formula, from the knowledge of this formula, we can predict without using the data set, without using the table here. We can predict what will happen if the value exceeding the table. For example, it exceeds 63,000. Contohnya dia 73. Jadi kita boleh predict lah using the equation. Macam mana kita nak predict? Just insert the value, certain value here, 70. Then of course you have the M, you have the C. Then you can predict the Y. You can come out with the prediction what is the value for the revenue if we have 70,000 cars. Ataupun kalau kita nak predict between, contohnya 20 to 29, kita nak predict 25,000 of car, then what is the revenue? Jadi kita boleh insert the value of 25 to the equation, then we can have the answer. First of all, if you want to find this equation line, you need to find the M and also the C. But differently, for your degree here, you do not use the similar equation here, but it's not really difference, because here we have the y equals to bx plus a. The A is equal to C, B is equal to M. You need to find first the equation before you can have a prediction. What will happen if something change in the numbers of cars? Okay, what happen if we change the number of car? What happened to the Y? Okay, then you need to use the formula. This the formula is similar to Y equals to C plus M X. How to get the value of A? This is the formula to get the value of A. This is the formula to get the value of B. Then you can have the answer lah. Okay, this one you can turn to page. Sekejap mana page dia? Okay, turn to page 568. The value is A equals to 0.396, B equals to 0.106. Jadi Y equals to 0.396 plus 0.106x. Then you can have the prediction of Y or prediction of X. Okay, in both way lah. That is chapter 10, correlation and regression. I explain to you first about this chapter 10 because it's much easier lah before we enter the chapter 6. That chapter 6 is very crucial for this subject. Okay, chapter 6. What is the chapter 6? Okay, chapter 6 is very crucial, very important to understand the whole thing about chapter 6, 7, 8, 9. Jadi without chapter 6 ni, you will not having a strong foundation, okay, to solve another 4-5 chapter in statistic, okay, biostatistic. Okay, that's all for this video.